Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubbs in the Club, your University of Idaho affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined by, look, this is confusing to me because Marten is double timing right now. He's doing it from both ends. He's producing and seducing, and he's a fellow co-host tonight. Marten, how's it going?
It's going great. The weather's nice in Moscow. It's almost spring game, which sucks. That means there's going to be no talk for a little bit on some Tubbs talk, but it's nice to be back on the show and talking about Vandal football for a little while.
Yeah, and we have to address a certain absence, which, hey, Bart Holt in the comments section says, echo, echo. I don't hear anything. So if you guys are hearing something more specific, just message the comment thread. But look, Dallas is gone again. And I almost called you Dallas. Marten, there's some confusing messaging here. I thought that the reason why this was happening is Dallas was going, there's construction going on at Holt Arena. I thought that Dallas went down there specifically to preserve the hoarder corners, which is the best part of Holt Arena. But your intelligence on this matter seems to differ from mine, Marten. What did you hear Dallas is?
If I remember right, I think he's at another Nickelback concert. I know he's getting excited for their summertime tour this year for their new album. I know he's excited. I'm excited. I know he just wants to get the Tubbs coverage going, expanding to more music than just sports.
You know, a little inside story about Dallas before we jump into talking Vandal sports, which, hey, Marten, maybe you know this because it's one of the first things he tells most people. Dallas met his wife, Izzy, at a Nickelback concert. I think they actually saw each other 3 or 4 times at different concerts before actually taking off. So anyway, we're done talking about Nickelback. That might not have been true. We're not done talking about Dallas. But hey, dude, we have some football stuff that we have to get to. A little basketball at the end, but mostly this is a football episode. We have the spring game coming up on April 28th. We're recording on April 26th. So 7 p.m. on Friday, April 28th, the spring game takes place, and then spring football is over. But we actually have a batch of news to cycle through, Marten. So we're going to jump into Around the Bar, brought to us by Hughes River Expedition. And Marten, you want to lead? Producing in public right now. Would you like to lead with the staff or the absences?
Let's start with the staff.
Okay, so Martens, you're gonna throw that up for me. And look, we have some news because look, everyone knows Tyler Yelk. He's gone. Former safeties coach. He's coaching with the Philadelphia Eagles now. Jason Eck has a new safeties coach. Was named in our gap week that we took off. His name's Bobby J. He's from Idaho, Boise native. He's our second University of San Diego connection. Tyler Sutton came over last year he was offensive coordinator at San Diego. So Bobby J. He's been at San Diego for, well, bio says a decade, which is relative to FCS level of football, Marten. That's actually a pretty long stay relative to being at one place. He most recently was a defensive coordinator for San Diego, but again, he's been there he's been on staff for about 10 seasons. He's been at San Diego itself for 12. He started as an admin assistant back in 2010 before he got his first coaching job there in 2011, moved up to linebackers in 2012, at defensive backs in 2014. And then since 2018, he's been a defensive coordinator in addition to being a defensive backs coach. So West Coast connection, another dude from San Diego. Actually kind of wild to think that 2 years ago, both Tyler Sutton and Bobby J were the two coordinators at San Diego, which relative to being a Pioneer Conference team, San Diego's historically good. They often look at Pioneer Conference, non-scholarship, lower level FCS. San Diego has often made the FCS playoffs and then typically lose in the first round, but that's because essentially for San Diego, winning a first round FCS playoff game is like their national championship. So Marten, any reaction to new defensive backs coach Bobby J? Or safeties coach Bobby J?
It's exciting to have new coaches, to have something else to talk about. Other thing just to kind of note, he is a Boise native. I didn't see anything about that Riverside Tech University. connection. So it's cool to have someone else that's from the state of Idaho coaching in Idaho now. Yeah, what I've seen so far, he's a great coach at practices that I've listened to. So I think Idaho will be fine.
Yeah, dude. Jay was also helped coach at Capitol High School football in 2006, 2007. So, yeah, like I said, Boise native. I don't think anyone is going to have much takeaways from a hire this far away, other than to say, hey, poaching a dude who's a defensive coordinator to come here be a position coach, to me, that's a win. That's a version of, like, hey, like we just talked about Sutton coming over, had been offensive coordinator, and now he's tight ends coach and had been recruitment coordinator. Never looked to see, because we talked about that posting for recruitment coordinator on the website. Never checked about what never looked to see if that rotation had been done yet. But I just love the idea that we have kind of an overqualified dude relative to his previous positions here. So no big takeaways other than I'm happy with the hire. Another guy who has a California footprint, so a different footprint than Yelk, but we know at the FCS level, people move on. This is just something that for sure happens. So Marten, we have some roster news to talk about as well. The roster news. Now, look, Bobby J coming is good news, because Tyler Yelk leaves. Look, we wish dudes didn't leave. Whatever happens at this level. We have to talk about some less exciting news. Both of these happened over the break. One of them was confirmed yesterday, so I'll do the reverse chronological order. Paul Moala, inside linebacker, second team All Big Sky from last season. Looked he was going to be defensive captain, to my knowledge. Had been taking all snaps with the one defense throughout the spring. Paul Moala has entered the transfer portal. Again, just happened yesterday. It was confirmed by Trevin Pixley, Lewiston Tribune. And we also had Kemari Bailey last week, defensive end, based off reporting out of spring football. Bailey looked like he was picking up right where he left off at the end of last season. He's going to be a starter, very likely going to be an important contributor to the Vandal defense this year. Both those two dudes are gone. Now, right out the gate, Kemari Bailey had an offer from Cal, so he's gonna get other D1 offers. This is not a guy who's leaving and going God knows where. He's getting offers.
He already took an official visit to Western Kentucky, so it's not like he's getting attention, and deservedly so.
Yes, yeah, he's getting attention from mostly FBS, but he's tweeting out FCS offers too. So no, he's gonna land somewhere. Paul Moala, I wholly expect he's going to land at a Power 5 school. I don't think Moala leaves really otherwise if he's not. Look, I don't think this is a secret to listeners, but just going to say it out loud. We've been told that the way recruitment in the transfer era works from FBS schools out of FCS schools is the best players are given promises about where they can go before they enter the transfer portal. So I'm expecting Moala probably has a pretty good idea of where he's going to go already, because by the way, we have a word for that. It's called tampering, but that's just how that works at this level. So anyway, expect Moala is going to land on at a Power 5 school. Marten, which of those two losses are you most concerned about?
For me, I'd say I'm more concerned about losing Kemari Bailey, because I kind of thought it would have been like a Malachi Williams and Kemari Bailey both kind of being those bookend, like the both DNs on the defensive line for us, and it would have been them just headhunting Big Sky quarterbacks. But they're both big, but I think losing Kemari Bailey is a little more to it. I think there's more importance by losing Kemari Bailey.
Yeah, so Bailey, the part of the promise out of Bailey is he got 5 sacks last year, and that was he was a rotational player last season, Marten, but Bailey he certainly wasn't a starter for all of the year. He played more as the year wore on, but towards the end, you absolutely could see where the dude's going to have his footprint. I'm going to go a different end though. Paul Moala was good. Dude picked off 4 passes last season. He had 61 tackles, but he played outside linebacker. He was moving to inside linebacker, replacing Favai. Honestly, I thought he would have been an upgrade over Favai, not just in terms of play, but in terms of discipline, like sticking to the scheme. That to me is, that viscerally, that's the one I'm most concerned about, because I think that the guys we have, because it's going to be Malachi Williams and Sam Brown right now at the 2 ends. And I think both those guys are going to be fine. I think that, I think we're probably going to lose, I don't know, at the side Bailey was on, like maybe we lose about 20% production, but I thought Bailey was good, but I wouldn't say he was yet like an all big sky level disruptor, Martin. But I thought Moala has a chance to be that. Now the reason I'm, got to throw some cold water on myself too is the transfer season's not done. There's going to be drop downs available. Every good coach, and Jason Eck's a good coach. Rob Orich is a good coach. They know good guys are going to be able to leave. Sometimes they're going to leave and it's a good thing. Sometimes they're going to leave and it is just a gut punch. But I have to imagine that this is just a reality of coaching college football at this level now, is you're essentially re-recruiting your team every single year. And you're working on your backup plan. So look, we know there's going to be some guys coming in, but to me, the loss of Moala is, that's tough, because out of the linebackers returning this year, Martin and the Big Sky, I thought he was. Look, I would have put him as a preseason first team all Big Sky. Trevin Pixley had him as his preseason Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year. Trevin's in the comment section saying that.
I definitely could see the same thing. Yeah.
I'm going to hit the comment section for a second, which we got Captain 58. Treeb got me pumped from Moala as Big Sky DPOY. Sad to see him go. The hype train got a little less hyped. Patrick Frick saying both are huge losses. In my opinion, I think losing Moala makes the biggest impact on the defense as a whole. Losing a Mike LB is so hard to replace. Captain 58 and Moala is probably going to be calling the D out there. Will miss the leadership. So anyway, they're both disappointing. It's work that Eck and staff have to do. I don't think it's going to be a matter of just simple. Well, it'll be a matter of simple substitution that someone's going to take over the spot. But in terms of,
I might be getting a little ahead of myself as far as spring ball stuff goes. But losing Paul, it'll be losing Paul will suck. But I don't think his replacement's going to be too far. Will be in a good way. We'll be happy with the replacement, I think.
Yeah, and what I was getting at a second ago is it's just that the footprint of the defense is going to change.
Oh yeah.
Who the impact players are is going to change in the same way that Moala rotated from outside to inside because of Favai leaving. That's a version of, we didn't just recruit a replacement for Favai, we just changed the defense. Eck and staff have been open forever. Ever since press conference day one, that they make their game plan around the players and around strengths of the players. So we know that's still it. We saw that all season long. We know that's going to be persistent now. We're just now in wait and see mode, particularly on Moala, for how that changes defensive makeup. But that being said, Martin, you were our eyes on the ground last Saturday at that's second to last scrimmage. The last scrimmage, of course, is on April 28th. So I guess Martin's going to be interviewed. That's how we're going to run this, guys. So Martin, you, of course, you naturally have some things you are more likely to pay attention to. You're a retired offensive lineman, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I might call a former offensive lineman from the state of Idaho. So I guess I'm curious. I want to talk about the scrimmage for the most part, because I know that, look, when we see the drills, we see the matchups, like that's interesting, but the scrimmage itself is what people tend to get stoked about or get anxious about. So I want to give you the wheel. My first question is whether it's what you're paying attention to or just what happened to pop. What stood out to you most about the scrimmage you saw?
For this most recent one, it was just the first team offensive line wasn't making those kind of the mistakes of like you wouldn't be thinking afterwards, why the hell did that happen? It was more just like Malachi or Jakari Larmond made the plays to beat their guys. It was the offensive line looked a lot better today. The past Saturday. They were opening up holes for Anthony Woods and Nick Romano. They were giving Giovanni enough time to make the passes that he needed to. I didn't notice a whole lot of the bad stuff, which in offensive line things is good. So it was not, they bounced back from their past weeks where it was defensive dominating in the scrimmages.
Yeah, no, I was told, I'm going to ask you in a second about the lineup of O-line that you saw, which is your cue if you need to scroll through some DMs. I was told separately, another guy who saw the scrimmage, similar to what you said, except he said early defensive line was getting penetration, then the O-line settled down. But when the O-line had assessment. Yeah, I said when the O-line hadn't quite settled down, then essentially if Giovanni McCoy was allowed to be hit, he might be dead. But after a little bit, the offensive line settled down, and we saw what you just described, which was honestly the offense moving the ball essentially as they wanted to. Both Anthony Woods and, like you brought up, Nick Romano, based off the backs who are there, appears to be kind of emerging as the number 2 back, which, hey, we have some freshmen coming in, and running back is a place, a freshman can start if they're physically ready. But would you agree with that? So far, Nick Romano looks like he's kind of establishing himself as the number 2 as of now.
Yeah, I mean, if there was to be a depth chart after the spring game, he would be the clear number 2. He was making the most out of what he had. It was Woods clear number 1, Romano clear number 2, and then I hate to say it, but like the rest of the guys were just kind of there as like number 3.
Yeah, and look, most of them are pretty young, so whatever. Like, people develop. Question I have for you. Want to ask a few more offensive questions before we progress through. So, is the quarterback situation looking pretty static? As in, look, Giovanni we know is number 1. Jack Lane looks like the number 2, as in he gets some reps with the 1s, mostly with the 2s, and Ridge Dutchakal looks like he's the 3.
Oh yeah, that's how I would describe it. As it's clear Vonnie's number 1. Lane's number 2, and then Ridge is number 3. It's been split. Vonnie with getting all the 1s, Lane getting split 1, 2, and then Ridge getting splits 2, 3. But like how you described the order is exactly how it's been at the previous 2 scrimmages I've been at.
Okay, and question I have is, I thought I saw Jack Wagner made an appearance during the scrimmage, at least as a holder. Freshman from Tualatin, Oregon.
No, he wasn't on the roster.
Okay.
I think you might be thinking of the punter they signed.
You know what? I will let Trevin, if he is listening, correct me if I missed that. So we're going to say our unofficial crack research team is handling that if Trevin's awake and not being overwhelmed by the shorthanded LM Tribune desk. Okay, wide receiver. You had some observations about wide receiver, which for the most part, again, look, number 1 and number 2, no real drama. What you might call the drama or the uncertainty is we've got, honestly, 3 dudes who would all be good to very good number 3 receivers on this roster right now. Of Jordan Dwyer, we know that Michael Graves, who earlier when Trevin was on, he said Michael Graves looked like he was kind of separating himself a little bit. And then this has been emerging because Therese Trainer's recovering from an injury. It takes about 8 months to get full recovery from. He's on month 4. But Therese Trainer's starting to get increased reps, as I understand as well. Out of those 3, did anyone look like they were standing out reps-wise as the number 3 receiver?
As far as Trainer, Graves, and
Dwyer.
It was kind of hard to say. I know, like, when they were doing kind of the first, like, for the past couple scrimmages, it was kind of like we have the 6 plays where we're going to go full speed with the 1s. Trainer was in on those. but it was kind of like Graves was not at the last scrimmage. He was just in a jersey. Dwyer was making plays, and I think he burned Marcus Harris on a couple of plays as well. But those were more like they got called back for penalties. But Dwyer, I think it's tough to say, but Dwyer has been making the plays that we all kind of expect him after we saw the hype of last year.
Yeah, observations I had were that, by the way, my bad on the Michael Graves thing. Observations I had was that Dwyer was looking like, as of late, he'd separate himself a little bit, but a little bit of an asterisk there, of course, Martin, is that Therese Trainer recovering from again, has like Liz Frank. I can look up the name. Injury takes about 8 months. Liz Frank, my bad. I apologize for classing that up. Liz Frank. That takes about 8 months to get full recovery. We know he's good enough to be a number one receiver on most Big Sky teams, but we also know that injury, like coming back 100% from injuries, is an actual question. Just because you make a physical recovery doesn't mean that you're able to be the dude you were before the injury. My takeaway there is it kicks ass that we're talking about, can Therese Trainer be the number 3 receiver?
Oh,
or it kicks ass that Jordan Dwyer, who
this wide receiver group is loaded. Like even with they kicking out of Graves, Dwyer, and Trainer, like what Trevin said about Tommy Hauser is like he's really good for a walk-on wide receiver that we have. He has been catching literally almost everything that he has been thrown his way. If he was the number 3, I would not be disappointed with that at all.
Okay, so we essentially have 4 dudes who you'd be happy with as the 3rd starter. I gotta say, hot take. I kind of want Dwyer to emerge out of that group because he's a freshman, redshirt freshman. He's a freshman, but I don't actually care that much who emerges. I more think of Dwyer. Dwyer to me has a little bit. He's more of a shifty runner to me than Hayden Hatton or Jermaine Jackson. They all have different strengths. Like Jermaine Jackson's absolutely the fastest of those. To me, he looks like he's the fastest north-south of those guys. And then Hatton catches everything. He has a size. Jordan Dwyer adds a different complement that to me, if he gets more reps, I'd be stoked about. But I think no matter what, he's going to get more reps, whether he's the number 3 or 4, whatever. They're going to find ways to get him the ball. And just because we're talking about receivers, circling back, I have a Giovanni McCoy question for you.
Yes.
Just like Trevin said before, he's still looking sharp.
Oh yeah, he looks like he hasn't lost anything he hasn't lost a step from last season at all. He's looking really sharp.
Fantastic. I have no I didn't believe he would.
It doesn't even look like he's like, even though he is the number 1, he does not look like he's taking he just said he get to cruise control. Like I'm the number 1 guy I can just kick my feet up kind of thing.
The only reason I even brought it up at all is dude completed 68.5% of his passes through 27 touchdowns and 7 total picks. It's just hard to improve on those numbers other than being given more reps. And if you're given more reps, you can just assume at some point we're probably going to throw a couple extra picks. But you're saying like, look, whatever he gets rep wise, he looks like the same guy as last year or a little sharper.
Yeah, that's fair assessment.
Fantastic. That is fantastic news. Okay. Tight end. What did you see?
Tight end is a little. I'm still like not sure they know what they want either. I feel like it could go one of 2 ways. They just have they have their blocking tight ends and Jake Cox, or they go with like a more receiving type stuff with Jack Schuster and Chance Bogan, or Jackson Mason at a Rocky Mountain. I think it kind of depends. Right now, it's been Schuster and Cox that have been running with the ones, just as far as like the normal, as far as first ones goes. But I know Chance Bogan's been getting reps with the ones. Jackson Mason has been getting more with the 2s, but he's starting to show up as well. Like he's starting to get. I think he might get some more reps as the season goes on, as tight ends get injured. But I'm not for sure sold that they have a true number 1 tight end yet.
Okay. That is relatively similar to what I heard, which, hey, again, asterisk. Alex Moore is still he's not back to full strength because he needs more time. he's in good enough condition that he's running, but he isn't necessarily able to cut. He's not taking part in the scrimmages yet. Correct, Marten?
That is correct. I think like the last time I saw him at the scrimmage, he was running what would normal football players would call as gassers a little bit. So it's like he's doing some kind of shifting, but it's not like cutting like you do in football.
Okay. So with that asterisk, Alex Moore on paper is a guy who, look, he was a starter day one last year. So presuming he gets back to full health, you'd expect he's going to be at the very least working his way into starter reps.
Yeah.
But you're saying, if knowing this is not done, you're saying if the season started today, Jake Cox is going to be with the ones, correct?
I'd say so. More of the blocking guy, more shift geared towards blocking, but I think he's probably the number one. If I was to pencil in, I'd say he's the number one.
He did catch a touchdown scrimmage though, didn't he?
Yeah. I remember that now.
But I understand what you're saying. He's look. If you're the number one tight end, you're going to do both. But you're saying his relative strength is probably blocking over receiving.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. Because Eck runs a lot of he ran a lot of two tight ends at South Dakota State, and we know that's something he's likely going to want to do here when he has the personnel. If there's two tight ends out there, are you saying it's probably Jake Cox and Jack Schuster right now, or Jake Cox and Chance Bogan? It's probably that kind of combo.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple sets where it was Schuster and Bogan as well, but I'd say more Jake Cox and Jack Schuster would be like the two tight end set I would think would be we were all probably going to see a lot of.
Okay. Which is to say, with Alex Moore mixed in there, it looks like the tight end, and I'm just hitting this point because tight end is such a damn blank slate. If Alex Moore is healthy, he's in there. And then we've got the other three you talked about, Cox, Schuster, and Bogan. That's likely looking like amongst those four, that's where we're going to get the majority of our reps at tight end.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. We've hit a lot of the offense. And the only reason I didn't bring up Anthony Woods, I think we all know Anthony Woods is just good. And he's going to be fine if he has space. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, not trying to blow through that and like treat it as an obvious one. It's just, to me, if Anthony Woods is getting more reps and if the line can give him enough room, we're just looking at an all Big Sky level running back. For listeners, Marten just nodded, which is his way of saying he agrees. So, okay, Marten, we hit the offensive end pretty hard. So now let's hit the defensive end. What stood out, or who stood out?
Obviously after Paul transferring out, I think one thing that stood out to me was just how quick Trey Thomas is picking up the defense. And I know, granted, yes, I know he was coached by Rob Orich at South Dakota, but just how much of a kind of plug and play he's been on the defense. I think another thing that stood out to me was, like, just speaking of the defense as a whole, I thought it was just this first scrimmage I went to, Matthias was doing kind of that. Matthias Bertram, I should say, was doing more of the just kind of that Cam Chancellor role, playing up close to the line, but still at the safeties. But as I came to the most recent scrimmage, he was working out like the positional stuff with the linebackers. And I think I want to say he's a linebacker now, just with what the depth is. And I think that's kind of what I've noticed so far. Kind of the key takeaways that I've seen.
I gotcha. And look, Matthias Bertram transferred last season from New Mexico, started 12 games at the safety position, picked up 74 total tackles, two pass breakups. But you're saying he's he was, as I understand, Marten, you're saying we're expecting to see him in more like the strong safety kind of role. But you're saying it's
strong safety. I can almost see him maybe playing it could be where he plays a couple plays at outside linebacker as well.
Okay. And Trey Thomas from South Dakota, he played at South Dakota. He was solid at South Dakota. We knew he was going to be a starter. Essentially, he wouldn't have been coming here if he wasn't going to start. He's looking good. You're feeling comfortable there. And I have to do this now. This is more or less a tradition on Tubbs, which is we exit one topic so we can go back to it. And Marten reminded me, I left the offensive to talk to early. We got to hear about the offensive line, which I'm bringing that up, Marten, because look, in researching for the shows, you and I talked to a decent amount of people. In terms of noting who is starting where on the offensive line, you are easily the most meticulous. So I apologize for missing that, but I got to bring it back to your bread and butter, Marten. What'd you see on the O-line?
It's been pretty consistent throughout the most scrimmages. It's been going from right tackle to left tackle. It's been Aiden Knappich at right tackle, Tagana Cisse at right guard, Nate Azzopardi at center, Terry and Rainey at left tackle, and I'm already blanking on who I've said at left guard. Oh, Brian, start milking for me right now.
Well, look, Marten is hitting his, and the reason I said Marten is the most meticulous is because he takes notes.
It was Knappich at right tackle, Cisse at right guard, Eliza Sanchez at center, Azzopardi at right guard, and Terry and Rainey, the transfer from Nazareth, I think, at left tackle. And then also Cisse and Logan Harris have been kind of intermixing at right guard as a battle, but it's been more Tagana Cisse recently.
Now, of course, Terry and Rainey from Olivet Nazarene, according to the govandals.com roster. Yeah, Olivet Nazarene. That is, I'm sure I pronounced that name wrong. But, okay, broadly speaking, too, we already hit on it a little bit. Minus the beginning, you said the offensive line looked like it settled in and looked relatively strong.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot more cohesive and more locked in and more like fluid, more woven cohesive together as the season went on, season practice spring ball went on.
So maybe even they've grown more cohesive.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you say they look good, we need to define what good means. Are they?
They're giving Giovanni time. They're giving Anthony Woods and Nick Romano like the space they need to make to get the 5-6 yard runs and make their moves in the pass to get past linebackers and DBs.
Okay. So you don't mean they don't look like Montana State good?
Oh no, they're not Montana State, North Dakota State good.
But they look good enough for relative to where we're at. They look good enough to tell you that, hey, there's probably I've talked about this a ton. We're going to continue to talk about this a ton. Offensive line, defensive line development are probably what dictate what Idaho's record actually is this coming season.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's not as much of a concern as some might have thought it was this time last year. There still is a concern, but it's not as bad or debilitating as I thought it was last year.
Okay, you're saying, look, this isn't like the most dominant line in the Big Sky.
Yeah.
But you're not anxious. In most matchups, you're not anxious about them right now.
Oh, yeah. One could say top 5 offensive line.
Top 5 like Portland State offense. Okay, well, if we can be top 5 Portland State in anything, then we call that a W, Marten. Okay, shifting back to the defensive side, you had some notes about the secondary, which, look, everyone knows. Tommy touchdown or turnover, Tommy McCormick, safety, he's fine. We all know that Marcus Harris at corner, he's fine. He's all Big Sky level. Our questions, of course, were, hey, other safeties stepping up, and who is going to be the corner on the other side of Marcus Harris? Take the wheel, Marten. What direction you want to go talking about the secondary?
The first one for me was the first one that was corner that was playing opposite Marcus Harris was Cam Stevens, the JUCO transfer. I can't remember out of which college in California, but he was playing with the ones last time. He was playing opposite Marcus Harris last scrimmage. He was kind of the other one. The other one that I kind of noticed was Dwayne McDougal, the transfer out of NAU, was kind of also getting some time as kind of a cornerback safety hybrid, along with Mervin. It was the most consistent DB set that I saw was Marcus Harris, Cam Stevens, Tommy McCormick, and Mervin Kenyon were like the 4 DBs out there on most base defenses.
Okay. And to clarify, Cam Stevens, redshirt junior from Victor Valley College. He's out of San Bernardino, California. Yep. Okay. So from what you saw in the secondary, now the matchup there is of course interesting because we already hit that the wide receiver group for Idaho is pretty damn good. Yeah, if you're good enough that Therese Trainer is looking like the number 3 or 4, that's a receiving group that's if it's not the best in the Big Sky, it's pretty damn close. How did you see the secondary? How did you feel about how the secondary matched up with the receivers?
They looked all right. There was some plays, like I mentioned earlier, where Dwyer did kind of get past Marcus Harris on a couple of plays, but it got called back. Overall they locked in, and they pretty much it was very much back and forth between them, to where like it's not. I'd like to see more out of them, but I'm not worried about it as much. It's still like to see someone step up outside of see some another defensive back step up outside of Marcus Harris and Cam Stevens, but I think that is might see that with like or Monty Arnold or Dwayne McDougal.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to rate a couple things, and because you've hit most of the big groups. We can't really comment that much on the linebackers, I think, other than you talk about the individual guys, but losing Moala just means, hey, what all that we saw, we got to kind of throw that out the window for a little bit, minus the individual performances. So at the end of last season, heading into this season, I think if Dallas were on here, he'd probably agree with me saying, look, not really worried about wideouts, not really worried about running back as long as Anthony Woods is healthy. Not really worried about cornerback. Was worried about O-line and D-line and secondary. Out of O-line, D-line, secondary, which do you feel best about right now?
Offensive line, I think, is the big I'm feeling most confident about.
Okay. Out of D-line, secondary, and I'm going to just wrap D-line into front 7. Front 7 secondary, which do you feel most comfortable about?
Front 7.
Okay. So you'd say still, in spite of Harris being good, and you said, some positive impact from the other guys, at this point, if those 3 position groups, O-line, D-line, secondary, are the 3 that you think we need to see the most development out of, we're seeing the most development out of the O-line, probably least out of the secondary.
Yeah, I say that with an asterisk. It's kind of a D-line and defensive backs are kind of a 2A, 2B thing for me. It's those, like, it's Marcus Harris, Cam Stevens, Tommy McCormick, and like Mervyn Kenyon are kind of just, it's those 4 and then some other guys. It's not bad, but I think Stanley Franks is going to do a hell of a job getting them ready for the games. It's like I haven't seen enough depth out of them, depth out of that group to where I'm like comfortable with it.
Okay. Which we're going to get to spring game talk in a second, Mark, good Lord. Fading. Marten.
I'm not the owner of the corner club.
Yeah, good Lord. Just dreaming. I'll be there this weekend. So we're going to get to that in a second, but we have some dudes who hang out on the river. We need to talk about for a moment. Glad I could give you that 1 second notice, Marten. But no, you're always producing, always seducing. You don't need any time. We're talking about Hughes River Expedition, guys. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976 and ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River, no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or the Selway. Check out special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. So grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesriver.com. That goes for whether you're a group like a corporate retreat or a team building retreat. That goes if you're a family, just a few people, you need to hitch onto someone else's ride. All inclusive means they take care of everything. You just get your ass there. That's Hughes River Expedition. Okay, Marten, question I got for you, because you have been to quite a few practices, what, 4-ish?
Yeah, about that much.
Okay. So you've been to a few practices. We can leave the Hughes River logo website up there. It looks nice. Well, we change it too. So Marten, the reason I want to bring this up to you, you've been to, 8-ish hours of practice, around that much time. You are of the non-coaches, non-players, maybe non-family members, non-athletic department staff. You've probably seen a lot of practice time, like maybe Trevin Pixley's seen more. I don't know. Which is to say, look, the spring game itself is probably not going to give you a ton of surprises because you've already seen these guys for a while. But for someone who's seen them for a while, what are you hoping to see out of the spring game?
I'm hoping to see more of just Jakari Larman, the big number. Y'all will see him on Friday night. The big D lineman they got from D2 Lincoln University out of Missouri. He is a big dude, and he is every much as praise as the team has given him. He has earned it, and then some. He has just been just kicking ass at every play that he makes. And the other one that I know this might be taboo to some Vandal fans, but just the other one I'm just kind of getting people talking about the spring game stuff is Jackson Eck. He's been running with the twos at middle linebacker. I think he is where I'm not so much concerned about losing Paul Moala as much as I am Kemari Bailey.
Okay, now I have to push back on one point you brought up. I don't think anyone's anxious about Jackson Eck. I think everyone, look, no one, I know why you're referencing that. It's the guy some people now dub as Gloves from a certain era. But like Jackson, the reason Gloves was an issue is because he didn't look the part and shouldn't have been playing the part. No, Jackson X, every one I've talked to said, no, Jackson X, he looks the part. He has the athleticism. He has the size as a potential true freshman. Thanks for that chyron there, Marten. Jackson X is not going to look like a guy who made the team because he's the coach's son. He looks like a guy who we're like, oh, thank God this guy's the coach's son. That helps explain why he got here. That's great news. So I don't think anyone is going to be anxious or touchy about Jackson Eck, especially if he's looking the part. We get to have him as a redshirt freshman potentially.
He has the size to play middle linebacker, and I think he'll make plays against the Big Sky teams.
Yeah, so I don't think anyone's going to be anxious about that whatsoever. Look, I don't know who publicly, relative to who was on the shows at the time, I don't know anyone who is more publicly antagonistic or frustrated regarding Mason than me. And I'm not anxious 1%. If he looks the part, that's all I care about. If he looks like he belongs, he belongs. Great news. Again, to me, that explains, relative to being a true freshman. Well, I'm actually barely is even a true freshman. His high school class hasn't finished graduating. If he looks the part now, it means he is the part. So Eck being the coach explains why he got to Idaho in the positive sense. But can I tell you what I'm looking for? Which is one, just so that we get the polar opposite of last year, so that we get it reinforced. Hey, at least look, Jason Eck, we know he's good because we saw last season, but just to remind people, no, that this isn't a fluke. Dude knows what he's doing. I want to see a little offensive fireworks. I love that we're going to get ones versus ones, which we of course never got in the Petrino era, where the whole point was fireworks. But I want to see earned fireworks. I want to be able to leave that game thinking like, God damn it, this is the exciting football that I love from last year. This is the team that's going to be one of the best scoring teams in the league. And now I have to wait for a while. God damn it, this was so much fun. So for phase one, yeah, I want to see. I keep asking like, hey, Giovanni McCoy still looks sharp, right? Because look, I know he does, but I want to be reminded, no, dude, this is best returning quarterback in the league. He's a Vandal until further notice. He's our guy. He's recovered, and he's going to be able to start the season with the coaching staff ready to trust him to win games instead of last season that had to be developed and earned. I want to see that dude let me just relax and to be an unironic Vandal fan again, which feels so damn good. Second, this goes with the fireworks. I want to watch I just want to watch the receivers look as good as they could be, as promising as we think they could be. That to me is a huge deal. They're also relative. Look, taking your observations now, offensively, maybe. I mean, it's hard to say that the receiving group would rate as a bigger relative strength than Giovanni McCoy because of how good McCoy is. But if we're talking about full groups, you'd probably call the wide receivers a relative strength on the offensive side of the ball, matching up against a secondary that you described right now as the part of the defense that still needs to grow the most. Well, if that's the matchup, yeah, I want to see some home runs out of Hayden Hatton, Jermaine Jackson, Jordan Dwyer, whatever. Again, that goes with the fireworks. Those are a couple things I want to see. Then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm willing to write off a little bit of the performance we see because we just lost two contributors that we already hit on. Marten and Moala's gone, Bailey's gone, and they're gone with pretty short notice. But I just want to see some guys make athletic plays. I want to see Jakari Larmond remind us what it's like to have a big guy up front. I want to see Marcus Harris remind us that he's one of the best corners in the league. And I want to see someone else in the secondary. Tommy McCormick is going to be fine, but I want to see someone else in the secondary make a play or two. Let me know, okay, we don't need to get any transfers in. We just need one of these guys to become a little bit more consistent and we'll be fine. Am I asking for too much, Marten?
No, I think you're asking like all the right stuff. I think I think that's what most fans should be looking forward towards.
Okay. All right, dude. Well, anything else you want to hit on before we hit a little bit of basketball news?
Nothing else I can think of. I just think this team is, if you were to compare the spring team, the spring roster that we had from last year to this year, it is miles way further ahead development wise than last year's team. This team would blow last year's team out of the water. I think they are much improved, and I think you're going to see a sneak peek of it from what we're going to see this spring, and we'll be all excited because they're going to add another 45 guys this fall from the signing class, something like that.
Yeah, although I'm glad you brought that up because if things go well, most of the contributors defensively and offensively too, most of our contributors defensively, we actually should be seeing playing in the spring game because most Big Sky teams that are good are not saying, oh, please look, our defense is going to look porous until our true freshmen show up. You might get a contributor or two out of the freshmen. You might get like a starter depending on the position group. But for the most part, the guys who are here now defensively are probably the impact players for the upcoming season. So I guess the other thing that I'm hoping to get out of the spring game is just looking at jumping back a step. The story of last spring, Marten, was anxiety. It was anxiety about the offensive development. It was excitement about the defensive improvement because the defense took a huge step up relative to not that much personnel change. It was last season, mostly coaching staff change. So when we heard the observations last season out of spring that the defense was looking good, there was excitement there, but there was a lot of anxiety, Marten, both from us and essentially everyone we talked to about the offensive development with the new coaching staff, which also anyone with a coaching background told us, hey, this is how development is supposed to be. The defense should take a step forward first. Offense just takes more time to put it together. The story now is the story now is the changing subtext of Idaho football, Marten, which is Idaho's a preseason. Some people are putting Idaho as a preseason top 10 FCS team. And I'm not saying they're there yet. I think there's a lot of questions before Idaho can get there. But the reason I bring that up is the story now is, hey, this is an exciting team. So they get to remind us of the excitement of the fun that we had and that we're going to have come in the season. I'm not really looking for these guys to prove in some sort of way they're a top 10 FCS team because they're going to do that this coming season if they can beat the playoff teams, which that was a development Jason Eck talked about on the Vandal Scoreboard podcast with James Aldrich. If Idaho is going to take the next step, they need to become the kind of team that beats playoff teams. I just want to see enough spark out of the position groups that we talked about needing to see improvement on, O-line, D-line, secondary, to tell me, hey, there's a chance that top 10 thing is real. Because look, FCS top 10 would be a huge deal heading into season 2 for Jason Marten.
Oh, yeah, it would be. I think it would be a lot further ahead than we all expected if you were to ask us. But with or we all thought we'd be year 2 with Jason Eck and the whole staff.
Yeah, personally, I think top 10 is premature at this point, but I think top 20 is not. I think the question right now, this far away, is like a fairer slotment in my mind would be somewhere between 15 and 20, a team that you expect should be competing for a playoff spot. But look, there's a lot of time. There's going to be some new guys that are added that can change. So look, we're going to close football talk. We have just a few minutes to hit basketball. Just want to run through a couple of things. Look, we're not going to talk about the men's basketball signing class until the whole class is together. But we do have a few pieces of news that we have to hit. First off is that Dallas Hammer is in the comment thread saying, hey, I got the Wi-Fi from Nickelback Tour HQ to work for 5 seconds. Love you guys. So he's not in post. So the hoarder corners are gone. God damn it. No, they're not. We saw photographic evidence. But hey, Dallas, glad you're here for a second. So basketball news, Marten, still haven't had a third assistant coach named or posted to the Go Vandals website. But the assistant coaches we talked about in Tubbs of the Club, Brandon Laird as associate head coach, Matt Jones from Seattle U. Look, Tubbs got those. Those guys are both on the Go Vandals page now. So we know Pribble plus Laird plus Matt Jones for sure are the majority of the Vandal coaching staff. We have some transfer out of the program news that we got to talk about. The big one, I'm going to hit the other guys, but the very big one is it's confirmed. Isaac Jones is no longer a University of Idaho Vandal. He hit the transfer portal on Friday, April 21st. So Marten, I guess in saying that, we're going to hit the other guys again, but what was your reaction today to getting the confirmation Isaac Jones is gone?
I'm not surprised, I think, is the best way, I think, for me to go about this. Like, it wasn't, I mean, with Harden obviously not coming back and his name being off the roster, I'm not surprised. It just was kind of like, finally it was announced. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay. My reaction was not shocked. Hey, just like Bart Holt in the comment section, no surprise, Isaac Jones left. No, not shocked whatsoever, but the idea of Isaac Jones surrounded by 4 shooters for the upcoming season, 4 athletic shooters surrounding Isaac Jones, that sounds like a team that'd be competing for a Big Sky title. But whatever. Hey, we wish Isaac Jones well. Hot take, I'd be in no way shocked if he lands at Washington State because he had a WSU offer before coming to Moscow, and he looked pretty good in Moscow. Got to hit the other guys because, look, it's almost easier to talk about who from last year's team is going to just stay on the team, but we've had a slew of transfers recently announced. Since we recorded, Nigel Burris had already declared he was gone. He's landed at Utah State. John Harge, a redshirt sophomore from last season, he's in the portal. Mikhail Abdul-Hamid, redshirt freshman, he's in the portal. Tyler Halligan, we already knew he was in the portal. We have Dominic Ford. He was one of the few guys that we really hoped would stay around for sure. Sophomore, going to be junior. He's in the portal. So Dominic Ford, he's gone. That's just announced. Yusuf Saleh had been announced. RJ Walker announced as well. So I bring that up with Isaac Jones because there's officially 3 total returners from last season's team coming back. We've got Titus Yearot from Lapway. He redshirted. We have Taryn Frank, who transferred most recently from Vanderbilt, had that kind of devastating leg injury,
whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
like dislocated ankle is what
things bending the way they shouldn't be kind of injury.
Yeah, he's a kind of a stretch 4. He's going to be back if he's healthy. You expect that he'll be competing for minutes, and Jack Hatton returning. He's already redshirted. He played spot duty. It's cool to have another Hatton in the program. He's related to Hogan and Hayden, but that's it. So we're very close to just control delete a complete new Pribble roster. So, I guess, Marten, your reaction to that fact that 3 total dudes are coming back, only one of whom really played much before his injury.
I'm hearing it's only going to be 3. I'm just kind of, I wouldn't say excited is the right word, but the slate that they have, like that Pribble has and the staff have, I'm excited to see what they do moving forward with the new slate, with what they're going to bring in. And it's almost, I wouldn't say not expected, but it's a new day. It's new fresh veggies.
Yeah, I'm similar. So any team that finishes last in the conference, you should call none of those guys must-haves, which is to say, if you finish last place in conference like the Big Sky, every guy on the team is theoretically expendable. Isaac Jones is the biggest loss because he was an all Big Sky player, and you can see a team. Look, Pribble, like, we're going to hit the recruits when the class is complete, but Pribble has a type. Dude is recruiting 6'5" to 6'7" dudes who can shoot. Just like he said he was going to his press conference, he doesn't want to have fewer than 4 shooters on the floor at any time. He wants guys who can handle the ball well enough in transition that multiple guys can bring up the ball. Let's just say his recruitment class looks like he's filling that out. It honestly, on paper, it looks like he's trying to put together his own version of what Eastern Washington had last season. A ton of guys who can switch, a ton of guys who can shoot. And I'm all in for that.
Oh, yeah. If you're on the #OnlyTubs, patreon.com/Tubs of the Club, Brian has talked about the people that they have committed so far. And like he's saying in the video right now, he is very excited about some of these guys.
Yeah, a lot of shooters, a lot of guys who have length to switch. We'll get into them individually. And hey, why not 51 in the comment section? Titus will be ready. Well, dude, I hope so. Because look, let me put it this way. Of the dudes I wanted to stay, for sure there was Jones, but he's gone. For sure Burris, but he's gone. Dom Ford would be up there too. But after those 3, honestly, Titus Yarot is who I want to stay. I know he hasn't played yet, but I think a lot of schools can do worse than giving a scholarship spot to one local guy who did very well at one of the surrounding schools. So I'm glad Titus Yarot is staying, and I hope he gets a shot to compete. But there's a lot of size coming in, a lot of size and athleticism coming in too. So look, I think the Idaho turnaround is going to feel so dramatic during basketball season. I think we're lining up to have a season kind of like football, where like this doesn't mean they're going to win the league or anything, but we're going to experience Idaho basketball as fun in a way we haven't for half a decade. And man, sign me up for that shit. I'm absolutely ready. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I'm fine that Pribble. The problem with Zach Kloss was not that he recruited better than the rest of the conference. How about that? The problem is that there's a lot, and we're going to choose to not dwell there. We dwelled there for a long time, for a lot of years. But Pribble getting, 9-ish, 10-ish slots to fill, good news, dude. We're going to call this a night, Marten, unless there's anything you want to close us out with.
I got nothing. I'm excited for a spring game this Friday night. If you can't make it to the game, it'll be on ESPN Plus. Give it a watch if you can. Fun times are happening in Moscow.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'm going to add is it would be cool if Idaho women's basketball could have a coach by May, because they've got a lot of work to do. I actually have a name we can talk about, but I need confirmation I can use it. But we have to be getting an announcement relatively soon. But, look, Marten, we recorded a while ago to talk about the Newly News, where we said, hey, if this is some master plan that's been in the works for a while, we're going to get a coach in 2 days. Yeah, that didn't happen. So fingers crossed that the search committee does well, land someone who has a chance.
Watch maybe something get dropped during the spring game. They want that Friday news dumped where it just nobody worries about it back then, or Thursday news dump either. But hey, it'll happen when it happens. And
It'll happen when it happens. That doesn't stop it sucking that the new coach is going to start this far behind the 8 ball of around May, and they don't have close to a roster assembled. But anyway, when the coach is announced, coach is going to be announced. Glad I could close this otherwise very good news podcast with shitting on a very dumb decision. But look, football's coming around, guys. We're stoked for football. Tubbs has about a month more of recording before we hit our break. Our basic schedule is going to be, we're going to cover the spring game itself next week. At some point, there's going to be a women's basketball coach to talk about. We have a basketball recruiting class to talk about. And we also have around the Big Sky spring football news, kind of, think of it as a quick report on the developments we're seeing at different schools during the spring, which there's actually a lot of changes in the Big Sky, largely a result of coaching staff changes, whether you're talking about Montana reshuffling who their play callers are, or Ed Lamb coming to Northern Colorado where they have a real coach for once. A lot of changes. So we're going to just do kind of an update on the Big Sky as a whole. And that's going to be essentially our next month. Then Tubbs takes a 2-month break in the summer. But thanks for joining, everyone. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube because eventually we get paid. Always look, we drop when we get inside news, we drop that to our only Tubbs patrons at patreon.com/Tubbs at the club. Sign up, help us out, get some swag. Until then, if you're in Moscow, see you at the spring game. Otherwise, V's up, go Vandals.
Go Vandals.